Hello and welcome to All the Way Down, a YouTube channel all about the Scottish rock band Biffy Clyro.
All the way down, all the way down.
So I was having a conversation the other day with someone at work, and admittedly they were 10 to 15 years younger than me, and the conversation came around to music. And every time I talk about music with people that I've just met, the conversation soon starts to turn to my favourite band, which is a Biffy. This person hadn't heard of the band, and when I started to think about songs that I could recommend, I couldn't really think of, an ideal song to listen to. I mentioned a few, but after the conversation I did look at Biffy's most popular songs in terms of UK single charts, and the top 5 in terms of the success of the singles goes like this. Number 17, The Captain. Black Chandelier got to number 14. That Golden Rule got to number 10. Many of Horror got to number 8. And the most successful chart single was Mountains, which got to number 5. It got me thinking about 5 songs that I should recommend as a fan, and I'll tell you right now, only one of those 5 songs that I've just said features in my list. So I've had a think, and it's all down to songs that give a sort of a broad range of what the band are capable of. Also, I've thought about maybe starting a bit earlier for them to sort of understand what kind of stuff they were doing back then in the first maybe 3 or 4 albums. And I'll say that there's no songs here from the last maybe 3 or 4 albums, and I think there is reason for that, because it's all about kind of recommending songs to get into the band, and maybe once they've checked out these couple of songs, they can move on to later works. So I've got a top 5, and I've got an honourable mention, which is Bodies in Flight. Now, the album Vertigo of Bliss is, amongst the old school fans, let's say, is considered a bit of a masterpiece. Certainly not in terms of chart positioning, but for, the old school kind of cult following that the band did create in the first couple of albums. The Vertigo of Bliss is considered, I think, the strongest. I picked Body in Flight. Essentially, I could have picked any song from this album. My favourite song of all time, Biffy-wise, is on this album, Toys, 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 Choke, Toys, Toys, Toys. That doesn't feature on my list at all, but it's the opening song from Bodies in Flight, and the whole album is just absolutely overreaching. It's really ambitious, it's angular, and I think Bodies in Flight kind of captures that best. It's got the loud and quiet dynamic, all 3 singing at the same time, shouting at the same time, and if you listen to that, I'd say you'd love Vertigo of Bliss. So now for the 5 songs that I would recommend to a new Biffy Clyro listener. I'm going to kick off with the first one, 57.
And I'll try not to feel this music's for you. And over, and over, and over. And I'll try not to feel this music's for you. And over, and over, and over.
Now, in my early years of listening to the band at college, this was the only song really that my friends knew about. Whenever I would bring them up in conversations with new friends, they'd vaguely heard of this song, so I always considered it kind of a gateway to the band. It's a real favourite of mine. I've said before, it's the first song that I ever heard, the first video I ever saw, so it's got a real place in my heart. I've got a real soft spot for it. They don't play many songs from Black and Sky live anymore, but if they were to pick one out, I think they would pick this one to put in the set list. It's got that stuttering verse, the sing-along in the chorus, all three of them singing at the same time, which is a real strong point, I think, for the band. And I'd really urge you to check 57 out. For number 2, I'm going to go with Mountains. Like I said in the list before, it's the biggest single that they ever come up with. It got to number 5 in the charts.
I am a mountain, I am the sea, 'cause you tear us apart with all the things you don't like. You can't understand that I won't leave till we're finished here, and then you'll find out where it all went wrong.
Probably considered a breakout hit for the band. It was released at an odd point in terms of albums, because it came before Only Revolutions and after Puzzle. I think it came out in the summer, and Only Revolutions came out later. So it was a kind of a one-off single that they put out, and it was really big. It was all over Radio 1, and of course it made it onto the Only Revolutions album. It's got that odd time signature that the band sometimes bring out. It's anthemic, and in terms of lyrics, you can really tell that Psy is really building confidence. And I think he has said this before in an interview, the fact that they toured for ages, they created these couple of albums, and confidence was really growing, fan base was growing, and it was just a chance to actually show off what they can do. And the chorus, I am a mountain, I am the sea, is really showing that they're a band really growing in confidence. It's a song that's always in the set list, quite often ends the main bulk of the set list, or ends the entire set in full. And let's face it, if you don't like this song, maybe you don't like rock music at all. For number 3, I'm going to go with Machines.
I've started falling apart, I'm not savoring life. Take the pieces and build them skyward. I've forgotten how good it could be to feel alive. Take the pieces and build them skywards.
This song was a bit of an afterthought in the Puzzle recordings. I do remember hearing that it was the last song to be recorded for the album. I don't think they were fully sure whether they would put it on at all or record it at all. It's a very simple song. It's delicate. It's got that nice acoustic line. And in terms of lyrics, it's something I consider a sort of a big point in the band's timeline, because it really feels like Si's hit on something important here with his lyrics. I've started falling apart. I'm not savouring life. It's an album about grief and dealing with that side of things. And I think it's the first real time that we see a real pureness and honesty with Si's lyrics. I've said this before and I'll say it again, when Si plays this at the Live at Wembley DVD set that they did, the circle of light bulbs comes down around him, and it's a real cinematic part of the set. I hope it's going to be a song that stays in the set list. It's a real sing-along and a real delicate point in the set, and it really rounds off the Puzzle album really well. Biffy are, quite capable of doing the loud and the sort of chaotic side, but Machines really shows that they can do the opposite side of that and really strip everything back. The video, the song that comes with the video, I think is really overdone. And I think we'll get to this when I talk about the music videos from this era, which will be in another video. The album version is just really simple strings, and I think it's a hell of a lot better than the song that you hear on the music video. Sometimes it's quality over quantity. For number 4, I'm going to go with There's No Such Thing as a Jaggy Snake. This song is the first song that we heard from the Infinity Land era. I do remember hearing some kind of wizard on a free CD sampler from Rock Sound magazine, But other than that, this was the first one. The song is enthralling, it's ambitious, it's sprawling, it's very abrasive, it's very unpredictable because it goes off in quite a few different directions. It really shows that heaviness and chaotic side to the band. There's a couple of songs from this album I could have chosen instead of this. Some Kind of Wizard, Strung to Your Ribcage, all has that sort of frenetic, shouty, really loud, chaotic sort of side to the band. But this one's probably the strongest, the more ambitious, and let's face it, I think it's a more of a fan favourite. And when it comes out at gigs, it's a really special moment. Infinity Land was the third album in as many years. They were so prolific around this point. You can tell that the kind of height of their powers in terms of creating a lot of songs and 3 albums in a row here. My final song, which I would recommend to a new listener of Biffy Clyro, would be Who's Got a Match?
I'm a fire and I burn tonight. I'm a fire.
There's really not much to say about this one. It's full of character, it's light on its feet, it's bouncy. It really shows the rhythm section of the band when they play it live are so tight. And speaking about live, it's always in the set list. You know, they play an acoustic song and then you hear the drum beat start with the bass and it all kicks off again. It gets the crowd bouncing, people can clap along, and I have no doubt that as a new listener coming to this band and a fan of rock music, you'll love this song. So those are my 5 songs plus an honourable mention that I would recommend to a new listener to start off listening to Biffy Clyro. Like I said before, it's not many from the last couple of albums. This is maybe 1 to 4 or 5. So it really is starting them off on what they came up with on maybe the first half of their timeline. I'd really like to know what 5 songs you would choose for a new Biffy Clyro fan. Maybe you listen to this as already an established fan, you've got your favourites, but your favourites are not necessarily the songs that you would give to a new listener to make them become a fan of Biffy Clyro. So what 5 songs would you choose? Do let me know.